Okay, it's recorded. All right, can you see the PDF now?
Yes, madam.
Okay. All right. So this is what you call agriculture charge. So this agriculture charge is similar to your what we call balancing charge, right? In your industrial building allowance. So, but here it says that agriculture charge is akin to balancing charge. Is the withdrawal of your agriculture allowance. So it's just like your clawback. Yeah, it's a clawback actually, a withdrawal of your agriculture allowance previously given, right? So the agriculture charge which would arise in the following circumstances. So whenever you have all these circumstances, then you have to treat whatever allowance is given to you before this as your agricultural charge, or what we call balancing charge. So in other words, it's a clawback. So why is a clawback in this case? When effective from 2014, where the disposal of qualifying capex, qualifying in this case, qualifying agriculture expenditure took place within 5 years from the incurring of such expenditure. All the agriculture allowance previously claimed would be withdrawn as agriculture charge. So it says that it's a withdrawn. So in other words, it's a clawback, right? Prior to 2014, the period was 6 years. All right, if you dispose within 6 years, then you will be a clawback. But now they have repealed. They say that it's only 5 years. So it means that, all right, whenever you have your qualifying agricultural expenditure, right, so you have to make sure that, all right, you hold or you run the business for at least 5 years, then only you dispose. If you do disposal within 5 years, then you have to claw back. Yeah. So in the event the disposal took place after the permanent cessation, okay, permanent cessation of farm business, the disposal shall be deemed to have been made in the year of cessation. Right. So if you have this, then you have to look into when is your year of cessation. So that is the year that you're going to claw back. All right. The agriculture charge is by reference to the previous agriculture. So what is agriculture charge? Is the previous agriculture allowance claim and not to the disposal price. So even though you do have a disposal price, that is disregarded. Right. So whenever there's a disposal within 5 years, so you look at how much you have claimed, that will be your balancing charge. It has also decided that demolition of building, right, is not a disposal, right? It's not a disposal, so you don't have to put agriculture charge when you have a demolition of building in the agriculture farm, right? As such, no agriculture charge imposed on such demolition. Okay. 9.2 says that, all right, we also have where you talk about grant from government or state government or statutory authority. So remember that those in the agriculture, they normally receive grant or what we call subsidy from the government. So here government could be federal government, could be state government, or it could be from the authority, farmer, for example, right? So where a grant from any of the above authority first become payable to a person working on a farm with the intention to relieve him the burden of any capex incurred by him, an agriculture charge equal to the grant amount would be computed. So this is quite, I would say, I do not know why they have this. They want to relieve the burden of the farmers by giving farmers subsidy or grant, but at the same time they are going to charge these farmers on the amount of grant that they receive. So it means that farmers have to pay tax on the grant received. Yeah, so that's how the law was. Yeah, and the agriculture charge shall be deemed to be first payable in the period of cessation if such grant is payable after the disposal of the farm. All right, so it means that if you dispose this farm within 5 years, then you have to apply the clawback. However, effective from 11th of January 2013, para 26 is deleted. Right? Memang is not supposed to be there in the first place. You give subsidy, you give grant to help them with the agricultural business, and suddenly you want to tax them on the grant or subsidy that they receive. Yeah. So now deleted means that grant received no longer be taxed as agriculture charge. Expenses financed from the grant are not deductible or eligible to any capital allowance. So later you'll see that if you have any expenses that you pay out from the grant or the subsidiary that you receive, those expenditure you cannot claim as a deductible expense, or you cannot claim that as a capital allowance. So you have to make it very clear lah, what are the expenses that is paid from the grant, what are the normal expenses that you pay from your business income. All right, so when you have balancing charge, normally what we do is that you have to compute how much is the allowance claim, and then you're going to claim that in the year of disposal. Yeah, but for agriculture, you have this election for spread bank. Yeah, so what happens is that normally whatever your balancing charge in the year of disposal, all right, so that is the additional tax that you have to pay. But talking about election for spread back, all right, where it says that in the year of disposal or permanent cessation, so there are two scenarios lah. The taxpayer may by notice in writing within 3 months or such longer period, apply in which the disposal made to spread back the agricultural charge to the past YAs. Cantik. Okay. Cantik kok. You request for spread back to the past year of assessment. Okay. So let's look at the example here. How do we actually apply the spread back? We have Tropical Paradise incorporated on 1st April 2013 to carry on the business of operating a coconut plantation. The company make up account to 31st of December annually. Various expenses were incurred as follows. We have cost of land, clearing of land, construction of roads, planting of coconut seedlings, construction of labor quarters, and then you have construction of store. All right, so you know that here year end is 31st of December. All right, even though it's incorporated in 2019, the capex incurred is in 2016, and then you have 2016 here, but cost of land again is not part of the qualifying expenditure. So you have in 2016, you have clearing of land of 80,000, and 2017, you have construction of roads, planting of coconut seedling, construction of labor quarters, and construction of store. Yeah. And then on 24th of September, you receive grant of 70,000 because 2018. So remember that the grant received after 2000. When was that? This one was deleted. Okay, so anything received after 2030 is no longer treated as a balancing charge. And on 30th of June, coconut was sold to Syarikat Haji Bahir for 500,000. Right, on 30th of June 2020. Right. And calculate the agriculture allowance charge for Tropical Paradise and Berhad for the relevant YAs up to 2020. So in this case, you have total paradise. Remember that what you have the clearing of land of 80,000 in 2016. So that's why you have clearing of land of in 2016. Clearing. Okay. 2016, remember that clearing of land is 50% each. So where do you get that information from? Remember that building use, where is it? I think that is here. Not here. This one. Big one. Mana? I was looking for the this one. Yeah, the clearing and preparation of land 50%, planting but not replanting 50%, construction on the farm 50%, then building, living accommodation and welfare 20%, then other buildings 10%. So let's go back to the example. All right. So you have the clearing of land 50%. So because you incurred that in 2016, right? So you have 2016 here. So you're going to claim first YA 2016 50%. So 50% of what? 50% of that 80,000. Yeah. So the capex is 80,000. 50% of that you're going to claim 40,000 in year 2016, another 50,000 in 2017. So because it's 50%, 50%, you only claim in that 2 years of assessment. But for the other expenditure, for example, the roads, the coconut seedlings, labor quarters and store is all in 2017, right? So you have the roads that you claim 50%, so that is also in YA 2017, right? 50% 2017, 2018, another 50%. Why you start in 2017? Because the capex incurred in 2017, so you start claim in 2017. Right, similarly for planting labor quarters, the rate is 50% and 20%. Planting you claim in 2017 and 2018, so 50% each, 50% each, so you only claim that in 2 years. But for labor quarters, it's 20%, right? So 20% means that you claim in 2017, 2018, and 2019. But when it comes to 2020, you only claim 6 months. Any idea why you claim for 6 months? Because the disposal is on 30th of June, right? It was sold to Syarikat Haji Bahil, right? 30th of June 2020. So means that year end is 31st of December. So for 2020, disposal take place on 30th of June. So means that the company can claim, and in this case, it doesn't mention that it's assumed that the company continue to use the asset prior to disposal. Yeah, they mention about within 1 month. So in this case, you continue using the asset in the business of agriculture. So 30th of June, so you're going to claim for 6 months in YA 2020. YA 2020 is also the year of disposal. So for agriculture allowance, you can have a time apportion. So in this case, 6 months, right? You claim your allowance. So how you claim that? 6 over 12 times by the 12,000. Yeah, 12,000 is the annual amount that you can claim for your labor quarters at 20%. So for 2020, instead of claim 12,000, you only claim 6,000. Yeah. Similarly, for your store, right? Why you can still claim? Because 20% it takes you 5 years to claim. If 10 years, it takes you 10 years to claim, right? But if 50%, then it's only 2 years. So for labor quarters, you have 6,000 in 2020. And for the store, you have 4,000 in 2020. All right. Normally, it's 10%. It cost is 80,000. So 10% is 8,000, 8,000, 2018, 2019, 8,000. But when it comes to 2020, it's the year of disposal, but you dispose on 30th of June. So you can still claim for 6 months on that set. Yeah? So when you look at the charges, how much is the total? So remember that you incurred that in 2016, you dispose in 2020, for example, right? So when is you incurred 25th of April 22nd of July 2016. So July 2017 means that you have July 2017, 18, 19, 20, right? You dispose prior in the 4th year. So because of that, it's within 5 years. So that's why you have to claw back, right? So you claw back whatever that you have claimed, 40,000. So these are the agriculture charge. So this is the amount of your agriculture charge. Command Z. Right, I buat ni je. Right, this is your agriculture charge. Total is 80,000. Roads is 100,000. Planting is 90 is 180,000. Quarter labor 12 is 36 plus another 6 is 42,000. Right, similarly for this one is 24,000 plus 4, so you have 28,000. So this is the total allowance that you have claimed on the agricultural expenditure. So the first one is saying that, okay, if you have this disposal in 2020, whatever we have claimed, you're going to treat it as agriculture charge in the year of disposal. So in 2020, you're going to have agriculture charges of 80,000 for the clearing of land, 100,000 for the roads, 180,000 for planting, labor quarters 42,000, and store 28,000. So total here could be a lot for the business for YA 2020, right? So the law allows the company to apply to spread back, right? Spread back whatever agriculture charges here, you spread back to the year of that you incurred. All right, the year that you have claimed the allowances. So for example, this 80,000 charge, all right, for your clearing of land will be divided into 2 years, YA 2016 and 2017. So for that period, you're going to have a balancing charge of 40,000. 40,000 for YA 2016, 40,000 to 2017. So remember that for companies, they normally have to submit their tax returns in the following year within 7 months. Yeah. So for example, if the year end is 31st of December, you're talking about 2016. So when you submit YA 2016, you claim agriculture allowance of 40,000. When you submit your tax return 2017, you also have agriculture allowance of 40,000. But when it comes to 2020, all right, if you do not claim for spread back, then you have a balancing charge of 80,000 on that clearing of land. Yeah, but if you spread back, means that you're going to revise. You're going to apply to RB to revise your tax com for 2016 and 2017. Right, so how you're going to revise? In 2016, you have a balancing charge of 40,000. You also have agricultural allowance of 40,000. So plus minus, so it's set off each other, means that for that year, you don't have any allowance for your clearing of land. Right, for 2017, similarly, you have a balancing charge of 40,000. You also have agricultural allowance of 40,000. So it's set off, plus minus set off. So it means that for that YA 2007, there's no allowances given on that agriculture business. Similarly, for roads, you're going to revise for road planting labor. So you're going to revise. So how are you going to divide that? So in this case, you have 100,000. All right, you have 2 years, then you divide by 2 lah. So 50,000 each. So you're going to put that balancing charge in the respective years of assessment. All right, but for planting, similarly, all right, 2 years also, 90,000 each. For labor quarters, all right, how many years you incurred? 2017, 18, 19, 20. So you have 4 years that you claim allowances. All right, you're going to divide into 4 years. So what you have, 42,000 divide by 4, then you get 10,500. So 10,500 will be given as a balancing charge in each of that year of assessment. So you have a balancing charge of 10,500 in 2017. Then you have agriculture allowance of 12,000. In 2018, you're going to revise having a balancing charge of 10,005, but you have agriculture allowance of 12,000, right? And then you also have 2019 and 2020 respectively. All right. Similarly, for your store, you're going to spread back that 28,000 over 4 years period. So 28 divided by 4 is 7,000 each. And that is for YA 2017 to 2020. So this is how you're going to do your spread back for your agriculture allowance if the disposal of the asset is within 5 years period. Okay, the taxpayer can elect to have the charge assessed over the YAs for which the allowance were made. So remember, for which the YA were made rather than in the year of disposal. In the event of sale, the allowance is a time apportion. So that's why for YA, for these labor quarters and store, we time apportion because we still use the asset prior to the disposal. So the day of disposal is 30th of June, so you can claim up to that period. So that's why 6/12. Yeah. And then the time apportion means that Tropical Paradise, we claim the balance because they are the acquirer. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Syarikat Haji Bahir is the acquirer, so claim the balance after that. Okay. So that covers the topic on your balancing charge. That also covers topic on agricultural allowance. All right. Definitely, most likely you'll be tested on this. Okay. I have actually prepared, hold on, yeah. Let me check if, okay. I have actually prepared the same tutorial in a table column form. Right. You see here that you have this. Can you see this clearly? Tropical Paradise, right? Example 29.5, where I have 2017. Can you see my Excel?
Yes, madam.
Okay. I nak cuba besarkan. I do not know lah. My internet is a bit lagging. Is it every time? Here you have 40,000, 40,000, 50, 50, 90, 90, 12, 12, 12, 12, and 6 in 2020, 8, 8, 8, and 4,000. So from here, you know how much is the allowances that you're going to claim, where you dispose of, and then total agriculture allowance and agriculture charge, and then if you were to spread back. So spread back, you're going to have your balancing charge in the respective years of assessment. Yeah. Okay. All right. Question? for balancing charge before we go into new topic, forest allowance? Are you clear about balancing charge here? The computation of the spread back. Tak ada? No question? Okay,
Madam,
yes.
for the disposal that is within 5 years, we calculate based on YA, is
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Not the date that we incur the expenditure.
Again, sorry. You, macam mana you buat? We claim based on date.
Because for clearing of land, right? It's we incur on July.
Okay. When you want to incur, you do not have to apportion. You claim everything for the whole year. But when you dispose, then you apportion. Okay. So for example here, all right, even though you incur the clearing of land on 22nd of July 2016, you do not apportion that into 6 months period. Because even though you incurred only in July, right, you claim the whole year, 50%. You do not apportion. But when there's a disposal, then only you apportion. Do you get that?
Alright, okay. Thank you, madam.
Other question?
Madam, I would like to ask.
Yes.
Actually, I didn't really understand like when actually is we want to use the spread back.
When you want to use. You're going to use the spread back. Okay, number one is that when there's a disposal of the asset within 5 years. So you're going to treat that as agriculture charges. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So what do you mean by agriculture charge? It means that whatever allowance that you have claimed will be treated as charges in the year of disposal. So the first option is that whatever you have charges there, 80,000, 100,000, 180, 42,000, 28,000, all that total will be given as a charges in YA 2020. So bila you ada charge in YA 2020, you have a lot, everything, charges tu banyak in YA 2020. So that's why the Land Revenue Board give you an option that you can apply to spread back the charges into the respective years of assessment. So it's just an option. It means that you have the charges rather than everything to be charged in 1 year of assessment. You are going to spread back the charges into several years of assessment. So when you're going to use, depends. It's up to the company. If you want to use spread back, then you have to apply to RRB to spread back, and then they will have to do a revision of your income tax computation for that respective years of assessment. Does that answer your question?
Yes, madam. Thank you.
Other question before we go into new topic?
Yes, madam.
Yes.
For this question, they disposed before 4 years, right?
Within 5 years.
No. In this question, they disposed before the 4th year, right?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to check here. It's before the 4th year, right?
Yes.
Okay, madam.
So since even though it's a 4th year, third year, so it still fall within 5 years. So whenever you have within 5 years, then everything has to be clawed back. Okay. Any more
Okay,
questions?
madam. Thank you.
Okay, now let's go into the new topic. Hold on, yeah. Hold on ya, give me 1 minute ya. My son dekat rumah duduk tidur je ni, tak pergi masuk kelas. It continues, no internet tomorrow. Boleh tak macam tu? Alright. Okay, the next topic, alright, is what we call a forest allowance. So this is additional allowance given for those in the forest industry. Yeah, so forest allowance is a form of Schedule 3 allowance. So you have your initial industrial building allowance, you have agriculture allowance, and now you have the forest allowance. So available to person incurred qualifying forest expenditure in the business of extracting timber in a forest. So you must be in this business, yeah, extracting timber in the forest. Once the forest allowance is claimed, the same qualifying cannot be claimed. Of course, there's a mutually exclusive there, right? You cannot claim here and there. You can, if you claim under forest allowance, you cannot claim under other schedule. So we also have public ruling 11/2014. You can check this public ruling, all right, with regard to the forest allowance. So why are the qualifying expenditure under forest allowance? It means capex incurred only by a person who has concession or license. So you cannot have simply want to go and cut timber. You have need to get a concession or license or permit in order for you to extract timber. So what are the capex? The qualifying forest expenditure are cost incurred. Hold on ya, I need to charge my phone pula. Right, is the cost incurred a road or building used for the purpose of business of which consists wholly or partly of the extraction of timber from the forest, or a building provided by him for the welfare of person or living accommodation for a person employed in or in connection with such extraction. So these are the only qualifying expenditure. So it means that if you incur expenditure for building a road, so you need to build a road to the forest so that you can transport your timber which has been extracted, all right, or you build a building office, for example, in the middle of the forest. So all these costs are the qualifying forest expenditure, all right, or building provided for the living accommodation or welfare of persons working in the forest, all right, in which the forest ceased to be used for extraction would likely to be of little or no value. So you have the zero value test also, right, to any person asset in connection with the extraction of timber from another forest or with a business consists wholly partly of the working of farm. So the zero value test must be conducted to determine whether the expenditure is qualifying or not. Okay, forest here, right, means a forest in respect of which a concession or license to extract timber therefrom, right, being a forest in use by him for extraction of timber. Okay, claim for allowance is 10%, right, for the roads or buildings, and 20% is for your welfare or living accommodation. So there are only two rates for the forest, 10% or 20%, depending on the type of expenditure. All right, so there's no initial allowance, so it means that this one is annual allowance. So for your roads and building, you have 10 years to claim, and for your welfare of employees or living is 20% per annum. Right. What about permanent cessation? Where a company permanently cease to extract timber, right? Cease, because timber is not that, it's a very limited period of time. You only have such number of timbers that you can extract. So once you have ceased to extract timber from a forest, the remaining, you see, the remaining residual expenditure, all right, is available as a forest allowance. So it means that, all right, whatever you have, for example, if you have extracted, you claim allowance for 5 years, and then you have another 50%, right? So that 50% will be treated as allowance in the year of cessation, right? And then you also have a forest charge. Yeah, forest charge is your balancing charge. Where a person who is in relation to a business, forest incurred capex, and then dispose that forest. So it doesn't say how many years, right? It doesn't say the number of years that you have to dispose. It's open here. So it means that it's applicable to all, right? There shall be made on him for which the disposal to a forest charge equal to the amount of the allowances. Command Z. Alright, forest charge equal to amount of allowances. To the or to aggregate amount of any allowance made to him mentioned to the forest expenditure where a forest is disposed of by that person after the end of the basis period. Alright, for which this is permanently ceased, then the disposal shall take place that in the basis period of cessation. So you have to look at when is the year of cessation. Completion of forest charge does not make reference to disposal price. So this one is very important. So whenever there's a completion of charge, disposal value is irrelevant. Right. So how you compute your charge is that whatever allowance I have given to you is given as a charge in the year of cessation. Is the withdrawal of forest allowance previously claimed? Right. Similarly, we also have the election to spread back. Again, you have to apply in writing within 3 months. All right, and then for you to spread back the forest charge to the past YA, which the allowance were made. So let's do, and then meaning of disposal here shall be taken to have disposed of a forest if concession or license to extract, or he transfer or assigns that concession or license, surrenders that concession for a valuable consideration. Okay, here we have an example, 29.6. Hutan Lee carries on a business of timber extraction from a forest in Malaysia and has an annual accounting date of 31st of December. So year end is the 31st of December. The following expenditure, you incurred construction of road 2017, you construct a road and living accommodation, and 2018 you another construction of road and living accommodation. Hutan Lee ceased to extract. So whenever you talk about cessation here on 30th of 11, 2020. So look at the date here. So you cease on 30th of November 2020, and then you dispose on 31st of January 2021. So the law says that just now that it has to be in the year of cessation, not in the year of disposal. So when you cease operation, YA 2020, not in the YA 2021. Right, and then you have a sale proceed of 15,000, and the law says that the sale proceed is disregarded. Right, the completion of forest charge does not make reference to the disposal price. So you don't have to compute your 15,000 into the computation. Right, and then 60,000 for the expenditure in 2018. So that is the sales proceed. An election is made under para 32.1 whereby you want to spread back. So how you do this is that for your Hutan Lee, right, year end 31st of December, road that cost you 20,000, you have 10% per annum. So for 2,000, you started that in 2017 for 10%. So you claim 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. All right. So for 2020, the law says that, remember that it says that in the year of disposal, how do you get that 14,000? Right, the law says that here, whatever amount the remaining residual expenditure, the remaining RE is available as forest allowance at the year of cessation. So how much allowance you have? You have 20,000 here. So you claim 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. So you have claimed 6,000 here. So the remaining 20 minus 6 is 14,000. So the remaining RE will be treated as allowance in the year of cessation. So total charge will always be the same as your total capex. Similarly, for forest charge here, all right, this one is the election. So when you dispose here, all right, automatically you have to claw back. So when you talk about forest charge, so in this case you have para 32 where you talk about spread back. So the 20,000 is over 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So 20 divided by 4, 5,000 for each year will be spread back, right? So you have charged 5,000 in 2017, then you have allowance of 2,000. So you see that the amount is not the same. Why? Because you have to, apportion based on the number of years here. Yeah. And then for accommodation, similarly, the cost is 40,000, 20% each. So you claim 8,000 each. But the balance of the remaining RE, in this 40 minus 24, the balance 16,000 will be treated as allowance for YA 2020. All right, and then you see that, all right, total charge here, you're going to be the same as your capex here. So how you're going to divide into 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So 40 divided by 4, that's how you get the 10,000 for each year based on the spread back. Okay. This is for expenditure that year end 2017, right? Then you have another computation for expenditure that 2018. 2018 means that you claim start from 2018, 19, 20. Similarly, 100,000 is 10%, so 10,000, 10,000. But in the year of disposal, you're going to have the 80,000, the balance of RE treated as allowance. Yeah. So total charge is also same as a capex. Because 100,000, you only have 1 to 3 years, so 100,000 divided by 3, you're going to have 3,333 per year. All right, and the final year, maybe you have 3,334, so that total is 100,000. Similarly, for your 2018, you have 60,000 capex here, but then you claim 10, how much was the rate? 20%. So 12,000, 12,000, but in the year of disposal, you have that 36,000, the balance. So total charge is 60,000 over 3 years period, then how you get that 20,000 per year as a balancing charge. So for 2018, you have balancing charge of 20,000 here, and then you have balancing charge of 10,000. Then you have allowances, all right? So this how you compute lah. For 2018 ada berapa? Ada charge 5,000, 10,000, 33,000 and 20,000 balancing charges. But at the same time, you also have allowances for 2018, 2,000, 8,000, 10,000 and 12,000, right? So the computation is, all right, when a forest is disposed of after the end of basis period in which the business has permanently ceased, disposal is deemed to have made. So here is very important. Disposal is deemed to have been made in the basis period of cessation. Right, not in the year of disposal, but in the year of cessation. In this case, is the YA 2020. Sales proceed have no bearing. Sales proceed is disregarded, right, in the computation of your forest charge. Election can be made under para 32 schedule 3, whereby you want to spread back, right, equally over the past year of assessment. To the transferee, so this one is not similar, where you say that unlike agriculture allowance, transferee or the purchaser of the forest business would not get any forest allowance upon acquiring the forest expenditure from the disposer. Right? Remember, you have your agriculture allowance where the transferee will get the balance of the allowances. But for forest, the transferee don't get anything unless, all right, he incurred new qualifying expenditure. Right, if you incurred new qualifying expenditure, then only you can claim allowance on the new expenditure. Right, on the existing expenditure, you cannot claim any allowances. All right, separate business. A person who carries on the activity of extracting timber in a forest and processing of sawn timber within the same vicinity is considered carry on two separate business. Right, it's not similar. Remember last time when we have your agriculture, we have the palm oil where you have to plant the palm oil trees, and then you have to do the planting, and then you have to the branches, all right, the branches, and then you have to process into palm oil. So all this is together as interrelated as one business. But in the forest, all right, the forest, the capex is only on the extraction of the timber. No, sorry, no, not like that. Is the 10% is on special income on constructing roads or building, on 20% is on the welfare of employees or living accommodation. Other than that, is non-qualifying. And in this case, right, the timber extraction and the sawn of timber are regarded as two separate business, and means that capital allowance for timber extraction is not deductible against sawn timber businesses. Even though it's from the same source, it's regarded as two business income, right? So you have timber extraction, and then you have the sawn timber business. So these are two separate businesses. So that covers your topic on forest allowance. Any example, any question that you are not clear about? Okay. Question for forest allowance. Tak ada?
Madam,
Yes.
macam mana dapat 5,000 untuk forest charge election tu?
You have the charge 20,000 here, total charge. Divide by how many months? How many years? 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So 20 divided by 4 dapat 5,000. You divide by the number. The charge divide by the number of years that you're going to spread back. You get that?
Okay, madam.
Macam ni 40,000 divide by 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why dapat 10,000. Here 100,000 divide by 1, 2, 3 years, then you get 33,000. And 60,000 divided by 3, you got 20,000. Other question? Okay. If you don't have any more questions, then that's the end for your forest allowance. Okay. So I think that I should stop the recording. Before